Okay, good afternoon, everyone. What a beautiful crowd. So, welcome, shalom, everyone. Thank you. First of all, let's give a big thanks to Freddie and Rabbi Yosef for all setup and Maria for a beautiful lunch. Let's give them a hand. Thank you. Let's sing her happy birthday. Happy birthday to Freddie. There you go. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so welcome everyone to the world of Kabbalah. So there was a, what do you call the people who eat people? Cannibal? Cannibal. The chief of the cannibal, he can't sleep at night. One night he's tossing and turning, he can't sleep. And his wife says to him, "What's the matter?" He says, I can't sleep. I've been thinking, what is the purpose of life all night long? So she tells him, I told you you should not have eaten the Kabbalist. So we're here to learn about what? What are you here for? Kabbalah? I thought we were doing comedy today. All right, never mind. Kabbalah and comedy, that'll be a great mix. Before we start, we actually do have our first comedy event on Sunday the 28th. We have a beautiful, an amazing comedian coming. He's actually in Israel now, and he's in Israel to volunteer to lift the morale of the people in Israel. He'll be with us on Sunday the 28th. That's one exciting event. The other exciting event is we're doing in honor of Holocaust Remembrance Day. We're going to have a survivor give us her account, what she went through. Irene Zisblad, you have it on the back of your flyers. And if you can, on the way out today, to take a few copies of the flyers and distribute them to your friends, your country club, wherever you are, to get people to come. Let's get into the world of Kabbalah. Already? All right, yes. Let's ask. Go ahead.
I took one class and they said that the pronunciation was Kabbalah.
Okay, that's.
Kabbalah or Kabbalah?
It doesn't matter really right now. It doesn't matter. In Hebrew, it's Kabbalah. If you are Ashkenazi, it's Kabbalah. If you are, if you like Ladino, maybe it's something else. In any ways, the word Kabbalah. What does Kabbalah mean to you? Anybody? What does Kabbalah mean to you? If you have to put it in a few words. Jewish mysticism. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So why are you here today? To learn about Jewish mysticism. Red strings, waters, Madonna. I don't have that. Sorry. If you came for that, you can get your money back. There is no shortcuts in Kabbalah. But what's most important is when it comes to mind, when you hear the word Kabbalah, we are going to explain to you what Jewish mysticism is. This is really an exciting course. It's a 6-week course put together by the JLI, the Jewish Learning Institute. They did an incredible job of taking such a huge topic and such ancient wisdom and pack it into such a beautiful curriculum. So I'm excited. You have your books. Those who don't have your books, if you continue, let Freddie know. We'll order more books. We underestimated the crowd, and we had more people sign up last minute. Otherwise, you should have a copy. You also have in the book a map, which we're going to talk about soon, and a chart of key words. But what's most important when it comes to Kabbalah, we're going to really discuss today is what is Kabbalah, what are its central teachings, and what is the significance of some of its key terms, like Sefirot and other key terms. On the map, if you look at the back of the map, you have a chart of of about 40 plus keywords. All right, and I don't want you to be afraid of those, but at the back you'll see all these different keywords. Each lesson will cover. You see, each column is a lesson. Can I have a copy? I don't have my own copy. Oh no, you guys. Can someone grab me a copy of the map? All right, let's need a map. I think some people don't have. Want to make sure. I think Mitzvah doesn't have. All right. If you don't have your own copy, there's more outside. All right, so you see we have lesson 1 has all these different key. We're not going to discuss it right now. We're going to get to it. But as throughout this class, each time you're going to familiarize yourself with more key terms. All right, put away the map for now. Put it on the side. Keep it on the side. We're going to get back to that. Most important, how are these teachings relevant to my everyday life? That is so important because this question, how are these teachings relevant in my everyday life, is critical to the teaching of Kabbalah. The Kabbalah goes back to ancient teaching of Torah. It actually predates Torah, which we're going to get into as well. But the goal, when it comes to Jewish mysticism, that's very important, is that it's not for some type of spiritual enlightenment. People think about mystical teaching, they want to have a spiritual enlightenment, that's not the goal. Rather, the goal is that it's to take the teachings and shift them downwards and make them practical, make them relevant. How does this teaching actually, rather is the shift is to shift perspective and empower growth. My objective in teaching Kabbalah, this teaching, again, is not for some type of red string and waters and hocus pocus, but rather how we can change, how this teaching can change our way of thinking, our behaviors, how we feel, how we deal with day-to-day life, what is my purpose, what is my mission in this world, how does it all work? So the teachings of Kabbalah give us the background, give us the components, and the better you understand how everything functions, as we're going to see in this class, the more you'll have the tools to become a better person. And that's really the key. Now let's jump right in. You've seen probably diagrams like that in different diagrams. These are fascinating diagrams going back to 14th century. It's also in your book. I think you have a picture. Yeah, on page 4 in your book, you have these Kabbalistic diagrams. Anybody recognize what is this diagram here? What is it? The tree of life. What does that mean? The tree of life, Eitz Chaim. Well, it's the tree of life, you're right, and Bella. And what is this? Lots of circles. But it's fascinating that these scholars made these diagrams back then to give us a better picture, an image of how things work in more of a supernal level. And this is really what we're going to start with. Why are images like these so important? And Bella mentioned that this is the tree of life. So one of the foundational concepts in Torah and Kabbalah is that God created us in our image, right? And the emphasis is image. What does it mean that God created us in His image? Image means it's a reflection. That God created humans, not animals, not everything else, rather specifically the human. And within the human soul is created in God's image, which means that God gave we are a reflection of how God exists and how God operates. Why is that so important for this particular teaching here is, as we're going to look in text 1, that if I want to understand the makeup of the universe, if I want to understand how God operates, I don't have to go with a big X-ray machine or a big scope. Rather, I just have to look into myself. I have to look how do I operate? How does my soul operate? In Hebrew, as Job writes, Mipsari echse elaka. From my flesh, I can perceive godliness. If I can see my own soul, if I can understand my own soul, from there I can parallel and understand how God operates. Look in text 1 by a great Kabbalist on page 6. Immortal is a mirror for the supernal reality. All that exists in both higher and lower realms is present in microcosmic form within the human. This is the deeper significance of the Torah's statement that the human was created in the divine image. And this is why we say, from my flesh I envision God. So clear? So we're going to basically look at the human soul, and from the human soul we're going to be able to see a little bit how God operates. Now, we're going to have a map. Now you can open up your map for a moment. I have a map here, you have your map over here. You have on the one side, let's look on the right side for a moment. On the right side, you have the divine image, the human soul. And on the left side is what's called the order of the evolution. We're not going to explain this now, we're going to get to it. But basically we're going to have kind of the human soul and the universe or the universal makeup, how they're going to they're going to run parallel next to each other. And we're going to get to this map soon. Let me give you an example. Because there's just how I want to understand godliness or the universe from my makeup of my soul. I can also go vice versa. If I want to understand how I operate, let me look how God created the world and how the world operates. So when I want to build, let's take an example, you want to build a house. When you build a house, what's the first thing you have to do? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you want to build a house? What do you need to build a house? Plan, money. What else? Material. Before that, ideas. Before ideas. Okay. All right. Before money, before plans, before ideas, what do you need? Ownership. Huh? Clear the area. No, before you bought a house, before you bought a lot, you have to think, huh? The plan. Oh, who said that? Excellent. Very good. So the Kabbalah teaches that the first thing you need for any project is not money, not the plans, not even the knowledge, but you need to have what's called a desire. Desire. Without desire, nothing gets done. Nothing happens. Just like if I want to move my hand, right? The signal that comes from my brain, right? It tells me to move my hand. So what comes after desire? Huh? Vision. Vision. Okay, before vision. Huh? A thought. Before thought. I'll tell you. After desire comes motivation. Very good. Will. Willpower. You see? Desire, will. Let me show you. From pleasure to action. Pleasure from having a home. First, you have to have that pleasure. If I don't have a pleasure having a home, why would I want to build a home? All right? All right, then comes the desire for a home. So actually, they actually added pleasure. This is actually interesting. Before desire is pleasure. Power of pleasure in Kabbalah is the highest power of the human condition. Right? We haven't reached the head yet. We're not in intellect yet. We're still before that. So pleasure from having a home. Number 2, desire.
How do you know?
Huh?
How do you know that it will be?
Good question. How do you know? You don't know. Pleasure is deeper than your consciousness. It's within you. There's no explanation. You have a pleasure for something, there are no explanation to it. You can articulate that pleasure. For example, that's why people wake up in the middle of the night, right? 2 a.m, and you need ice cream. Right? You need ice cream. That power of pleasure has the ability to take you out of bed in the middle of the night and get you a scoop of ice cream. And how do you can you explain it? In Yiddish, actually in Yiddish, there's this expression, because pleasure in Yiddish is called a taiva. Taiva means a pleasure. Like, and actually, we're going to get there. Actually, it's going to be lesson 6 already. We're jumping ahead. But we're going to ask the question: God, in order to create the universe, God had to first create a desire. But above desire, God had pleasure. God had a pleasure to create this universe. You're going to ask why? So Yiddish should say, "Of a taiva is kenkasha nicht." No, on a desire you cannot ask, on a pleasure you cannot ask any questions. Why do you like vanilla over chocolate? Can you explain it?
Oh, it's so much better.
It is so deep ingrained in your essence of your soul that you cannot explain it. Okay, we're going to get there. What?
What if you don't have knowledge of ice cream? What if you don't have knowledge of a house?
Exactly. I'm not saying necessarily.
You're not necessarily born with
And that's
knowledge of ice cream.
and that's why as we get older and we get to know more toys, we are exploring that our desires and pleasures jump from. That's where exposure comes into place. But let's not jump ahead. I'm just giving a very simple generalization of how everything has, and the point here, everything has a evolution from top to bottom, or devolution. It starts with pleasure, having a home. It goes to desire, having a home. Then comes justify the endeavor logically. Then you come to start thinking, well, just because I want to have a pleasure for a home, I want to have a home on the beach, right? I want to buy the $10 million mansion. I have pleasure, I have desire. Well, now your logic jumps in and says, well, you can't afford it. It makes no sense, right? By the way, a lot of people make a mistake. They don't go here, right? They buy the big car they don't need, right? Because they just act based on their pleasure and desires. Boom. All right. So then comes after you justify the endeavor logically, you have to explore how each option makes you feel. Meaning, you take apart the ideas and the details, and you've got to connect it to yourself. How does it make you feel? Feel is emotions. Very different in a sense than desire and pleasure. Different between desire and an emotion. And then you're going to rethink the plan, and you speak it over, and then you buy it, signature and handshake. Why? Again, I don't want to go deep into this, but the idea is, this is called, just like we operate this way, God, when He created the world and keeps creating every single moment, God creates a system that's called Seder Hishtalshalut. And this will be our first key word. Seder Hishtalshalut, a system of devolution. The many degrees of systematic descent that stretch between God's desire to create the universe and the tangible result of that goal. Okay. This system of devolution, known as Seder Hishtalshalut, is probably 90% of the teaching of Kabbalah. And the more we learn about it, the more we'll have an understanding, the makeup of the universe, again, how God operates, and as important, how we operate, and how I can, based on this knowledge, understand my makeup and how I can change, be a better person. Not so difficult. Some of the topics today and over this course might be over your head. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to jump in. There's no test. There's going to be no exams. And in this class, I'm going to be really focused more towards bringing everything down to practical application. All right? Everyone still with me? If you have an important question that can wait till the end, please wait till the end. If it's really, really burning, you can, of course, ask. All right. Look over here on text 2 by Rabbi Moshe Alshich. God fashioned a ladder planted on earth whose top reaches into the heavens. This ladder rungs serve as channel through which the flow of divine energy can evolve degree after degree in a constant pattern of progressive coarsening until the flow can be received at the lowest extreme of existence. I want you to take up the map again. Look at the map. I'm going to give you a 30-second order of devolution. I want you to look at this chart, the order of devolution, and if we can go to here. And you're going to see that we start today on the bottom of the order of devolution, which is the physical world, called the physical Asiya, our physical universe. Above our physical universe, there's something called spiritual worlds, many spiritual worlds. Generally, today we're going to discuss about 3 worlds above that. And then it goes into, and if you look at on the left part, independence, divine, to finite, to infinite, to the Or and Sof. Meaning from God's infinite light to something to create a physical universe, it has to go through this devolution of step by step. Why? Why? Because God is way too big in a sense. God is the incredible infinite power. So in order to create something that is finite, like our universe, there has to be a progress of what we call tzimtzumim, of contractions of his light, levels by levels by level, until a physical existence can come. That's how much I'm going to give you an insight now, but we're going to go step by step. Don't worry about it. So let's put the map away again. All right. Very important point. And this is the Alter Rebbe writes in text 3. We're talking about images. When we have images of worlds, right? Everybody can start picturing. He writes as follows: succinctly, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov taught that when studying the works of Kabbalah, we must be careful not to perceive the Kabbalistic ideas as literal physical concepts. Right? The whole Seder Ishtalshelus is really a non-material realities. It's a spiritual world. Right? So when we're talking about worlds and lights and infinite light, and we have diagrams, they kind of give us, we tend to make pictures, right? It's like here, from the book of Amit, right? Amelia Bedelia, which says, take the lights out, right? Remember this? They take the lights out, she takes the light bulbs and she hangs them up. So many terms that we say about God's right hand, God's left hand, don't visualize as something physical, rather just for us to get a better picture to understand these concepts. Because God speaks in the language of man, so we can have a better grasp and understanding. All right? So, just to recap, what is Kabbalah? A sophisticated exploration of the order of devolution. Called what? Seder Hishtalshelut. Clear? The how of Kabbalah is the Seder Hishtalshelut consists of non-material realities, and everything is in a spiritual sense. Even the drawings that we saw earlier, right? It's always in a spiritual sense, not in a physical sense. Now, the physical and spiritual, they always come together. It's not like 2 different realities. It's one reality on top of each other. So just like we are like on the very bottom, and all the spiritual realities are kind of stacked on top of each other for our existence even to happen. All right, moving on. Why is this study so important? Anybody? Why? Why is it so important? Huh? Two? It gives you life meaning, okay. Okay, very good. Yep. To learn about God and his ways, yep. Self-understanding, of course. Okay, keep you away from materialism. I'm going to change that. It will keep you to transform materialism into a meaningful experience. How's that? Because we don't want to disengage from the materialism. Meaning materialism, I'm talking about the physical universe, right? Judaism does not believe in some type of out-of-body experiences, that we have to leave this world to be connected to God. Rather, our job is to bring godliness into this universe. Materialism, you mean like fluid stuff? Yes, absolutely.
10
Okay.
minutes at a time.
Okay. Yes. The background information can help us make better choices, as Luisa said. Right? If you need, right? When is it helpful to know how a car operates? Huh? When it breaks, right? When it breaks. Why? Because if you know how the car operates, you can fix it. So the more we learn how the world and we operate, this information. Anyways, and one more important part is we can affect and influence what happens above. Okay, this is a little bit too high. You see it? The teaching of Kabbalah teaches us that we have ability to affect and influence what happens above us, which we're going to talk about. Give you a quick nugget, a mitzvah or kaddish. We're going to talk about souls as well in this course, right? Where do souls live? In which world? We talk about Garden of Eden. Somewhere here is Garden of Eden. And with better understanding, when somebody passes away, their souls go up in heaven. And my action has a connection, here down here has a connection, I can affect their souls. Just a little nugget. But not only there, also for ourselves. Everything is a flow. Blessings are a flow. Energies. My action, God has given me the power, our freedom of choice, to change destiny. Prayer, mitzvah. How does that happen? That will give us, the teaching Kabbalah will give us a better understanding. All right, we're ready to jump in for the first part of the chart, and that is going to be the bottom blue chart. And you should have a picture. All right. It's gonna be called the three worlds. The three worlds. You have it on page 9. The three worlds called Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya. This is from the Zohar. The Zohar writes as follows. God's glory includes Beria, and God bestowed this unto the human. God's glory includes Yetzira, and we'll explain soon what that means. And God bestowed this unto the human. God's glory includes Asiya, and God bestowed this unto the human. Thus the human is rendered in the image of supernal glory. All right. What does that all mean? Let's watch a video that will explain all of this in beautiful illustration. You're going to hear the word Bia. Can you repeat that word? Bia. Bia is the acronym of those three worlds that we're getting introduced. Beria, Yetzira, Asiya. In Hebrew, in Kabbalah, there's a lot of acronyms. In Israel also. The army, the IDF is full of acronyms, just the word IDF, right? But in every unit has a different acronym. Beautiful. Some of them, if you understand Hebrew, it's really very rich. Bia is basically the acronym of those three worlds. What are these three worlds? Let's watch this video.
What is the
1 second. Let's get the speaker on. Of course. Okay.
What is the Kabbalah? It's Judaism's mystical wisdom. It discusses souls, the deeper meaning of things, and the spiritual system of the heavens. Never heard of this heavenly system? That's okay. Why don't we do what Kabbalah does best? Offer a parable to explain something abstract. You decide to build a home. Your plan actually begins with an intuition of pleasure. Deep within your subconscious, you sense the enormous pleasure of dwelling in a home that truly suits you. That spark of pleasure that invades your brain's desire center. I want a home, you tell yourself. Immediately, your intellect grabs the wheel. You logically justify the desire and analyze the possibilities. Your emotions chime in. How do I feel about this location? Am I uncomfortable with high windows? You carefully rethink your plan, you discuss it with friends, and are finally ready for action. Sign, build, poof. What's all that got to do with heaven? The Kabbalah reveals that when God decided to create the physical world, God first created an entire spiritual system that parallels the experience we've just described. In this first video, we'll take a quick look at the final three stages of this system. In each subsequent video, we will climb one level higher as we explore this supernal chain of command. The mystical work titled the Zohar discusses the existence of three spiritual worlds that precede our own. Their names are Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. These worlds are inhabited by angels and souls before they descend to earth, and those who have passed away and flourish in the afterlife. In Hebrew, the word Beriah means to create something from nothing at all. So, in the spiritual world of Beriah, for the first time in the entire system, things exist that are aware of their own existence. They feel independent, outside of God. That's amazing, because nothing is independent of God. But in Beriah, God hides his presence to enable entities to emerge with a sense of self. Nevertheless, the angels and souls that inhabit Beriah feel tremendously close to God and are completely focused on God. Everything here is fragile, extremely close to losing its identity and being blissfully overwhelmed by proximity to God. So, God took it one step further and created the spiritual world of Yetzirah, which means to give shape to something. This is where the sense of independence from God truly begins to take shape. Here, God hides his presence to a far greater degree, which allows the spiritual inhabitants of Yetzirah to develop greater self-awareness. That said, God is still sensed in the spiritual place. And so, God made Asiya, which in Hebrew implies a complete and final product. From its perspective, the sense of independence from God is complete. Asiya has two linked layers. Its top layer consists of spiritual beings, and in its lower layer is our physical universe, the tangible, material world we know so well, where we struggle to relate to the divine force that continuously creates us. The good news, even as we reside in the physical Asiya, our souls keep a connection with those higher worlds from which they emanate. The spiritual Asiya helps us peer beyond the physical. Yetzirah empowers us to suspend our self-focus long enough to sense God's presence. And Beriah helps us feel blissfully overwhelmed by God's presence, at least momentarily, such as in a moment of meditative prayer. So, we walk planet Earth, but at the same time, we can be firmly rooted in the bliss of spiritual loftiness.
All right. All right, so get a kind of a picture. What is BR business is? Can you sell it to somebody else? Not yet. Okay. Don't get lost. Don't get lost. Not, and if you don't understand it so deeply, it's not important either. Um, but just to recap quick, we're starting from the bottom up again, right? We have our physical world, which is the world of Asiya, and on top of that, we have the three spiritual worlds. And the higher the spiritual worlds, the more what? The more godly conscious it is, right? The less what? The less worldly it is, exactly. So, we're going to introduce another word, and that is called yeshut. In Hebrew, if you're Ashkenazi, yeshus, but for now we're going to do yeshut, right? Yeshut means existence. Existence with a sense of self-awareness and independence. In other words, anything outside of God that feels yeshut, that feels independence. Why? How is it possible for something to feel independence of God? Because they are far removed from the original source. The further they're removed, the more yeshut, the more independent existence they sense. What's the opposite of yeshut, of existence? Huh? Not death. Huh? Non-existence. Non-existence, or what we would call the second word we're going to learn is bitul. I don't know if it's in the next slide. No, not yet. Bitul, which means nullification. Nullification. Okay? So, let's make this simpler with the three stages of Biyah, of those three worlds. Just like a baby that's born, right? There's three stages of development. Right? You have an embryo, a fetus, and a full physical maturity. In the embryo, there's almost no form. There's very little characteristics of the baby. That will be the level of bria, where godliness is so strong that it doesn't give yet room for something of yeshua, something to exist. The second level of Bria is like the fetus, Yitzira is the fetus, where godliness becomes more distant, and a form starts to appear. Still spiritual. And then you have the full physical maturity, so where godliness is so far removed that it gives room for an independent existence, which, as a translate, gives birth to this physical universe. That's the devolution of Hishtalshalut. And here we have it. Beria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Moving on is how I want to take this structure and parallel this in our own human example. And this is really where it gets much more practical. So if you're a little lost, now it's a good time again to step into the train, okay? Because this was just kind of a backdrop. So, just give you a quick, those who enjoyed the charts before, you see all these charts? So if you know Hebrew, it is the same chart. This is the infinite light, or Ein Sof. This is our physical world. And everything goes from level to level of evolution till the physical world can come into existence. And in Bria, it says, Olam HaPirut. This is from a 14th century Kabbalist, which means the world of separation. Why is it called the world of separation? Huh? It's absence of the divine name. It is so far removed that it's no longer has the sense that I'm close to God, and that gives ability to feel that I'm myself, I'm a Yeshus, I'm an existence, independence of God. Is Yeshus a good thing or a bad thing? Huh? Is Yeshus a good thing or a bad thing? Huh? It's a good thing. Without it, you don't. Are we Yeshus or not Yeshus? What are we? We're all Yeshus, right? Exactly. We're all Yeshus, like the guy in the car, right? Yeshus is the only ability for us to exist. If we will be much, much higher, we can't come into independent existence. So obviously, that gives room for, well, if I'm my own independent existence, then I don't need God. We're going to get there. Now, you can have, I'll give an example of teenagers. Anybody here have teenagers at home? I'm the only one? I'm the only one? You have grand teenagers? I'm going to give you a good example to understand the three worlds within the framework of a teenager. You can have a 14-year-old teenager. Take three 14-year-old teenagers. One has almost no independence. It cannot make its own decision. It's totally under the umbrella of their parents, right? The other extreme, you have a teenager who says, I don't need my parents, right? I can do everything myself. And then you have somebody in the middle. Sometimes they need the parents more, sometimes they need the parents less. Why is that? Same teenager, same age. Why is that? Well, a big reason is how much are the parents overshadowing, or how much is the teenager connected in proximity to their parents? You see what's going on? The closer you're to your parents, or you feel you're under the umbrella of your parents, and I cannot make my own decisions, doesn't allow the teenager to become independent. So is independence a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, it depends, right? It depends. You don't want a 12-year-old to be fully say, I fully independent, fully yeshus, I don't want to have any connection to my parents. But then you want, as we get older, right? When teenagers get older, at 18, 19, you want them to be much more yeshus. You want them to have much more independence, and you slowly remove yourself from them. So the same thing happens with how God creates the universe. So in the Berea, it's so intense that there's very little space yet for independent reality of a world. God had to kind of remove the light, so till the lowest level where we're further away, but that gives us yeshus. All right. This was the teenage individual. We're going to jump that over. Okay. Oh, so this is the word bitul, the second word. This is, again, another key word on the back of your books. You have called bitul, which means surrender, suspension, nullification, a subdued sense of self due to being absorbed by something overwhelmingly impressive and the desire to become one with it. Is bitul a good thing or a bad thing? Huh? Again, it all depends on what context, right? But in general, we're going to learn in Kabbalah, and one of the avodah, one of the service of God, is for us to work on our bitul, right? We are one big yes should, but we need to work that we should surrender when we feel in the presence and we understand that we are not really, all these worlds that we're talking about, they're not like somewhere else. They're really all here. But some of them we have more of a sense of grasping it, some of them we don't feel it. When you become more spiritual, learning about spiritual concepts, and you meditate, it helps you get yourself more aware, and that brings you to bitul, where you surrender not in a bad way. Surrender means I'm becoming overly overwhelmed by the impressive, infinite power of God. Okay. Now let's get practical. Okay. All right, let's get to the human example. Let's take a little exercise. You have a pen? All right. Before you write anything, we're gonna now explain the difference between you, your soul, your core you, and your behavior. Is behavior a definition of who you are? Yes or no? Huh? We will see soon. Let's do this exercise. Huh? Yes or no? We'll see. We'll have a debate, of course. We'll have a debate on that. We're going to discuss is the behavior versus your soul, your core, you. Let's do this exercise. You have a pen? I want you to write 2 plus 2 equals 5 and write I love moldy tofu. Moldy tofu. Yeah. Moldy tofu. All right. Okay, here you go. Then next thing I want you to say it. Say 2 plus 2 equals 5. I love. Very good. Now I want you to think it. Think it. Think it. Okay. All right. Next thing, I want you now to understand, not to think, to understand 2 plus 2 equals 5, and I love moldy tofu. I want you to understand it. And you want you to feel it. Feel 2 plus 2 equals 5, and I love moldy tofu. Anybody been successful in this? Huh? No? Why not? Not true. Were you able to write 2 plus 2 equals 5? Yes. Were you able to say it? All right. So this exactly is the difference between behaviors and the soul. You see, behaviors are not who you are. You can behave in a different way. It's not necessarily a reflection of who you are, of your soul, of your core soul. So, if we are going to now, for a moment, say that the soul is like a part of God, right? The soul is like a part of God that God gave us. That's the true who you are. The way you express your soul, it all depends how close your expression is to expressing your actual soul. The further you are from your soul, the more the expression are going to be in contradiction or separation of who you are. So look at it as the 3 levels. They're called garments of the soul. The next key term, you have that on page 14. These are called levushei hanefesh. What are they? There are thought, speech, and action. Those are behaviors of your soul. They can operate in ways that contradict your soul. They can easily be changed, as we're going to demonstrate soon. And they are referred to as levushim, garments of the soul. They have their own identity, and they correspond to biyah. How so? So again, what are levushei hanefesh? Thoughts, speech, and actions. The soul's behaviors which are external to the soul itself. How do they correspond to the 3 worlds of biyah? Let's look on the chart. Thought. Don't confuse thoughts and wisdom or understanding. It's 2 different things. Thought is the power, is already the expression of what I'm thinking. So anytime I want to express, I can express myself in thinking something, thoughts. Second will be speech. Third will be action. Which one is closest to my intellect? Now, by the way, intellect and emotion is really my soul, is how my soul is. When we're talking about what's the seat of a soul, it's our intellect and our emotions. And in that, next class, we're going to go into that as well. But First thing, what's the closest to my intellect? Thought or speech? Which one is closer? Thought, right? Which one is closer to my emotion? Thought or speech? Huh? Well, thought is closest to myself. I can't visualize, I can't take my thought and plant it in somebody else only by speech or an action, right? So the garment of thought is closer to my soul than the second garment of speech, the third garment of action. That's why it's parallel to the three worlds of Biyah. Look at the chart. Thought senses the soul's feeling more forcefully. That's why it's constantly churning within us. Thoughts never stop. Thought is like this operation machine that always operates. We can't stop it. Why? Because it's so connected to our soul. Or to your brain, let's say, right? If you go back to the chart, in Bria, those who still following the Bria, the highest level of the spiritual worlds, right? It senses godliness so close that it's like a embryo. It's not. It doesn't have its own development of own independence, yeshus, so to speak. So we understand why that's so important. Thought remains unknowledgeable to others, and that's why it's a world of Berea, the highest of the three worlds. What is speech? Where does speech originate? From which world? The world of Yetzirah. So that's why speech is further removed from its source, further removed from the soul. That's why it's sometimes you speak, sometimes you stop. It doesn't run constantly. It's not a default expression of the soul. Observable outward expression. Speech is much more physical, much more you can observe it. There is no separation between the words and the speaker, which means it's still connected more to the speaker. Words are connected to you, as same with thoughts. Thoughts are always connected to you, versus the third one, which is action, right? One more thing, speech is not tangible, but action, go to the world of action, action exists outside of us, right? If I tell you something, you can say it's an expression of who you are inside. If you hear me speak, you can hear, oh, it's a rabbi speaking. If I furnish something, if I build something, it doesn't tell us who built it. The action exists outside of us. And it's obviously much more physical and tangible. And that's the world of Asiya, which is really our physical world as well. We live in the world of action. I want you to read over here. Let's read text 6 on page 15. Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya are comparable to physical garments. We can always remove our garments and dress in alternative garments because garments are not part of our essential selves. In the soul's experience, this correlates to the thought, speech, and action, which are not relevant to the core of the soul, but serve only as its garment. And that's why in 6b, Beria corresponds to thinking, Yetzirah speaking, and Asiya to the physical action. All right. Following? Did everyone follow along? Okay. These are a lot of information you can process. Okay. Absolutely. If you look at your figure on page 17, what do we see? Again, self, Beria is thought. We can think of nonsense and concepts that contradict our genuine opinions and feeling. We can switch our train of thought from one topic to another. Speech, we often cannot convey the full intensity of our feelings. We can communicate ideas and emotions to others. And action, our tangible accomplishments remain even after we leave the scene. Our influence is physical and tangible. And this really relates to everything, how we operate, how we think, how we feel, how we interact with each other, relationships. For example, the way you express love to somebody else, right? How can you express your love? Actions, speech, or thought. Let me ask you, which of the three expression does the receiver feel the most love? Action, right? Less so by speech, right? By speech, and almost nothing by thought. If I just think I love you, right, the other person is not going to know about it. What is the indication? Why is that? Because thought is bria. Bria is so connected to me. It cannot separate from. It doesn't have the ability to separate, to become a yeshus, to become an independent existence. It's so important to understand that these expressions they go about both ways. You can say, well, action is further from the original source, but if I need to communicate to somebody else, action is really the most effective way. Why that is so fascinating, let's do one more slide here, and that is about control. Control. This is really such an important, relevant application. Too many times, and we're going to skip this, but in your booklet, read it after class on page 18 and 20, 18 to 20, it will talk about three levels of souls. In the video, touched about this, that souls can also live in these different worlds. And three types of angels. And you have the Berea angels, Yetzirah angels, Asir angels, and you might be familiar with those names in the prayers, Ofanim, Chayot, Ofanim, and Seraphim. But not today's class, but you can read this. It makes a very interesting learning exercise. Regarding souls for a minute in different worlds, my soul, where is my soul stationed right now? Huh? In my body. So my body, where do we live right now? In Asiya, right? We're in the world of, the world that we live in is called the world of action. World of action. That doesn't mean that I am disconnected, or my soul is disconnected from a higher world. My soul is like, they have the go-karts in the park, they have the metal beam that goes. Our souls has this beam that goes from the lowest level to all the way to Hashem in a constant flow. The difference, the problem is, the challenge is that most times I'm in a conscious level, I'm just feeling my soul the way I'm in the world of Asiya. I don't sense my soul the way it feels in the world of Berea. How does my soul operate or feel in the sense of Berea? Does it have an ego?
No.
Huh? It's egoless. It's almost no ego. It's completely melted in the intensity of feeling the source of where the soul comes from. Wouldn't it be cool that we can get in that Bria moment, in the Bria world for a few minutes? Do you want to go there now? Should we go there? Okay, you have to buy the upgrade. Okay. Well, actually, this is where meditation and prayer comes into place. Right? Matter of fact, we pray 3 times a day. With 3 Amida. Each Amida, and we're going to learn in the other classes, represents an entry to have the ability to tap into a higher level within our soul. Shabbat, we pray 4 times. Yom Kippur, 5 times. Yom Kippur with the ability to come to the highest level. Just to correlate everything we're learning today. But I want to go back to control. This is really very practical. Yeah.
So, in this lifetime, we're moving from these different worlds up, and we can do that through if I understand this correctly, through meditation and prayer.
Within our lifetime, we're actually living constantly through this entire Seder Hishtalshalut. Through prayer and meditation, I have ability to be more conscious, to tap into this. It's really who I am, but I don't feel it. I don't sense it. Through prayer and meditation, I can kind of peel away those layers of separations, the distance, and tap into the core of who I am. And from that place, I have ability to change. Right? I don't want to be defined by my last station. I want to have ability that I know I can change from within. Right? We're going right here. Let's do this. Be very relevant. Go to page 22. There's a list over here of, and I want you to mentally identify one trait that does not pose a challenge for you, and then mentally identify one that does. Okay? Let's take a few seconds. Pick one that does not pose a challenge for you, and one that does challenge. Only thinking, no writing, no talking, just think about it. Okay, are these flaws who we are? Are these character flaws? Is that an expression of who you are? Huh? Well, yes, this is who we are, right? But why are there some things that you don't have a challenge? For example, I don't have a challenge with anger, right? Why not? So either because you're not an angry person, or maybe I am an angry person. Well, how come you don't yell every day, every moment? Because you control your behavior, right? You control behavior. So you see what happens? You have the ability to control your behavior, which basically means that just because my soul is one way, I don't have to necessarily act upon it. Right? I don't have to act upon it. I'm not damaged goods. And the other way around as well. Just because I feel I have these flaws on the outside, that doesn't mean it's who I am on the inside. When it comes to the garments of thought, speech, and action, you have control, just like a garment. Why is it called garment? It's not the soul itself. A garment you put on, you take off. Just because you have a wound, it doesn't mean you have to stay in your garment. So you have wounds inside, you have deficiencies maybe in your makeup, which is how God created me. It doesn't mean that defines me how I live my life in thought, speech, and action. And not only doesn't my job is to control the way I express myself. Those garments are not pre-wired. You have the ability to actually be in control of them. Even if my natural tendency leans towards arrogance, for example, right? I can still act modestly. Even if my character is more cynical, I can still speak favorably of others. And even if my inclination is to be anxious, I can still think calming thoughts. Why? Because it's outside. It's like biyah. It's outside of God's territory. It's outside of your soul territory. That is really what's the Hebrew word for human? Adam. Adam is actually in Hebrew an acronym for thought, speech, and action. in the Hebrew letters, you have it over here. It's also inside your book, right? The Hebrew letter Aleph, or A, represents the word Alefcha, which means thought. Dalet comes from Dibor, which means speech. And Mem is Ma'aseh, which means action. This is what it means to be a human being. What is it? God created us as humans. God gave you a soul, but God gave you the garments, thought, speech, of action to control. You're in control of those garments. Here's a fascinating story on page 25. This is mentioned in the Talmud by a commentary. There was once a sage who sent a drawing of his face to a, how do you say that? Psychoeconomist. Somebody who analyzes paintings, right? Huh? All right. A master who discerns temperament and character from one's outward appearance. So when the master saw the drawing, he immediately blocked his face in fright. The messenger who brought the drawing asked him, "Why have you blocked your face from looking at the drawing?" The master replied, "I'd never seen the face of such a horrible person before. I saw in him coveting, adultery, robbery. One shouldn't gaze at the face of such evil." The messenger was obviously terrified of bringing back this reading to the sage. However, the sage sent word that he should return without fear. Upon his return, the sage inquired about what had occurred. The messenger conveyed everything that he had heard, concluding, "That's why I was afraid to return to you." The sage replied, "Surely this outshines all others. Everything he said about me is true. My eternal inclination drives me and seduces me to commit all of the wrongdoing that the master saw. I use my wisdom to refrain from acting on it." All right. Another Bia practical application is 3 steps of making an important decision. This is the Kabbalistic 101 of 3 steps making an important decision. What are the 3 steps? Thought, speech, and action. What is it? First thing, you have to think, plan. Then you have to have speech, consult with friends. And number 3, implementation. You have to implement your decision. Now, it's pretty obvious, right? Everyone knows that. Yeah? If you want to have a project done, you have to think it, speak to others, speak it through, and then implementation. But Kabbalah says that's not just because that's how it is. The reason it is this way is because it's in the Seder Hishtalshelus, God also created the universe through these 3 steps of Bria, which is thought, Yetzirah, speech, Asiya is action. And people who struggle, when you struggle by skipping a part, what happens? It doesn't work out. Now you can say, I'm better at thinking, I'm better at talking, I'm better at implementation. Giving us these 3 steps is a reminder that we have to make sure that we use all those 3 steps when I want to make an important decision. We're gonna wrap up shortly. I want to read you a text from the Rebbe on text 9. And Miriam, I want to read us text 9, page 29.
The behavior of properly functioning people is based on and guided by 3 things: thought, speech, and action. First comes thought. Those thoughts are then expressed by speech to others, such as when consulting friends who understand a specific field for the sake of arriving at a clearer and more accurate picture of the matter. This allows a person to arrive at a practical conclusion whereby their thoughts and discussions are translated into concrete action. Thought alone is insufficient. Similarly, contemplation about subsequent discussion is not enough. We must bring our plans to action. At the same time, in order for an action to be complete, must reflect the reality that it is simply the third link in a chain, following forethought and helpful discussion. Otherwise, our actions will be rash. When we engage all three, thought, speech, and action, and in that particular order, we can reach our full potential, just as the hierarchy of the worlds is complete, only with all three worlds present in their specific order.
All right. So the needs are for all three. Cannot skip one part in anything you're trying to accomplish. How important that is when it comes to our spiritual mission, our mission in this world. So we think about mission. Why am I here in this world? Well, you also have to go through this process of Bria, Yitzir, Asir. Everything you do, thought, speech, and action. The thinking must be translated into action, and we must ensure that our actions are preceded by proper consideration and consultation. And for this, we have mitzvot. So God gave us, how do we have, this is a universal teaching. The teaching of Kabbalah are universal. So for Jews, we have X amount of mitzvot. Non-Jews also have the 7 Noahide laws. But mitzvot, by definition, means my mission to bring godliness into this world. But how do I do so? So within the mitzvah, we have mitzvot also have to go through this process. You have to think, speak, and do. In general, you have 3 types of mitzvot. There are some mitzvot that are very action-oriented. For example, what's a very action mitzvah? Tefillin, tzedakah, right? So these mitzvahs are primarily about action. Then you have mitzvahs that are primarily about speaking or thinking. Which one? Well, the ani is prayer, right? Study Torah. But even within the mitzvahs of action, even when I give tzedakah, not even, especially every mitzvah, you need to first think, you have to speak it, and then bring into action. Same thing goes with meditation, learning, and prayer. That's why prayer is connected with not just even speaking, but also, of course, thoughts, but also what happens after the prayer. How do you live your life? Right? They tell you, your mother says, the main thing is you should be a what? A mensch, right? A mensch. What does it mean? They were very well versed in Kabbalah. Those bubbies, right? They knew that what? Mensch means your garments, your expression. Now, many mitzvot involve all 3. And I want to give you a takeaway because we are out of time. And that is a daily exercise, how you can do your biyah exercise of thought, speech, and action. And that is a spiritual stretches. Every morning you wake up. Look in text 10, page 30. As soon as we wake up, we should contemplate, so thinking, before whom we are lying, and become aware that the King of Kings is close at hand. As is stated, the entire earth is filled with his glory. It is best to habituate ourselves immediately upon waking to recite Modeh Ani. I thank you, living eternal King, for you have mercifully restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. This will remind us of God's intimate presence and inspire us to rise energetically. And seeing that the Modeh Ani does not include the divine name, we are permitted to recite it before ritual washing our hands. So you have it. I gave you a copy of the Modeh Ani, and if not, on the way out. Every day in the morning we have this beautiful prayer. While you're still in bed, awake in the morning, meditate for a few seconds, a few minutes. That God gave you back life. God gave you your soul back. Another day to fulfill his mission. Be grateful, Modeh Ani, then articulate it, speak it. And then we wash our hands. We have a ritual way of washing our hands. Back in the times of the temple, the Kohen, before he started his day, had to wash their hands. Why? Washing hands is an exercise that I am, my hands, what hands? Action. I'm prepared that my actions should be in line of my mission to serve God. So thinking, speaking, doing. Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. And this will hopefully help us throughout our rest of the day, everything we do, to be a mensch. If I feel inside not in line with what I want to say, no, or you can say, remember what you learned and control your thought and speech and your action. We're going to conclude with the key points, and with this we'll conclude the class. Let's watch two.
Lesson 1. The evolution of ego. 1. The disposition of our internal character need not automatically dictate what occurs in the realm of our thought, speech, and action. We can control our levushim, irrespective of our personality. 2. Our actions should be preceded by proper planning, thought, and consultation, speech. On the other hand, we must make certain to graduate from planning and discussion to engage in concrete action. 3. We can begin each day with a motivational exercise that is a built-in feature of Jewish practice. To first think about the Creator, then verbalize our gratitude toward Him, and then act by ritually preparing our hands. This brief early morning tour through Bia sets the appropriate tone for our entire day.
All right. Next week we're going to learn the dawn of limitations. We're going to take the spaceship above Bria, and we're going to go into the world of limitations, which we'll get to Tzimtzum. Take it home, think it over, study it over, meditate on it, and I hope to see you again next week, same time. If you continue the class and you did not sign up, let Freddie know so we can get you a book on time. I will look forward to continue this journey. It's good seeing everyone on Zoom. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi. It was excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Rabbi, why would Hashem do all this work? Like, why would He make the systems and all this?
Wait till next week.
Really? Okay.
Gonna get there. Yeah.
Really?
I'll try to close the.
Oh, you're recording?